Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to March edition of Excel BI Virtual Chapter. My name is Johan and together with Alex from Microsoft we'll do the presentation today. First off, some community news. I don't know if you have been on the websites recently, but in the beginning of March, pass.org officially launched with a new brand and new look and everything. Looks very smooth. From March the 1st until May 31st, PASS will be supporting local group leaders to engage with existing PASS members, as well as encourage new members to join local groups. So our aim is to increase awareness of PASS as an organization, as well as the associated learning and networking opportunities available to members, such as today. Local groups who bring in the most new PASS members over the 3-month period will be awarded with Visa gift cards in the following 8 categories, so US and Canada, EMEA, LATAM and APAC, in both small group and large group settings, and small groups are 250 or less members. So stay tuned for updates on local groups' progress over the next few months, and if you have any questions, just contact the community team at pass.org. Since we're so late in the month, there is just one meeting left. That's in this set, and that's the Women in Technology meeting on March 29th at 12 UTC. Oh, sorry, -4. Also remember all the virtual groups, previously known as virtual chapters, that are available on pass.org. So there's anything from big data and data architecture to global Persian if you want. Upcoming SQL Saturdays for now, just Phoenix and Colorado Springs this weekend. So if you haven't, if you're in that area, why not check them out? And remember, if you're not a member yet, sign up at pass.org. The membership is free. And you connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn with SQL Pass. So I'll hand the reins over to Alex, who is a program manager at Microsoft for Excel pivot tables. Thank you again for coming, and thank you, Alex, for presenting for us.
Hi, Johan. My pleasure. So, good morning, or good evening, everyone. I'm going to show you a few things that we have added to the product and related to pivot tables. I am a PM, or what's called a PM on the Excel team here in Redmond, and I work on the team that invests in our advanced BI features such as pivot tables, Power Pivot, and certain types of remote connections. So I will show you two major things that we've released that are going to be that are available to Office 2016 users on Windows that have an Office 365 subscription. You'll also, and one of those features is actually, it's just being released now last week. So if you're on the Insiders Fast program, you can start playing with that as well. However, that'll be available in production in about another month or so as we slowly start releasing it out to customers. So first I'll just tell you a little bit about what the Office subscription is and how you can sign up for it and some of the value there. I'll show you how to take advantage of some of the performance improvements that we've made to pivot tables with OLAP connections. And then I'll show you how you can actually customize your pivot table defaults, the layouts, things like tabular versus compact view, grand totals on and off, things like that. So to get started, what the Office subscription is, it's something that we began offering in Office 2013, and we put a lot of work into it and added a lot of value into it with Office 2016. And so essentially what it is it gives you access to the latest features and the latest improvements in Office that as we release them, and it's usually on a monthly basis. You get all the apps you're used to: Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You also get storage, and depending on your SKU, you get access to things like increased storage in Power BI and telephony via Skype for Business. And you can either pay as a one-time yearly fee, or you can pay on a month-to-month basis. And so we've actually added work. Once we released Office 2016 in 2 years ago at this point, but since then we've actually added more things that are only available to subscribers. So one of them is the performance improvements to OLAP pivot tables. So I'll take a quick look at that. So this benefits pivot tables that are connected to both tabular or multi-dimensional models. And so what we have here is actually it's a fairly simple dashboard. It has two sheets. Here you have a flat pivot that if you're familiar with, that people will do things like build get data functions on top of. Here you also have like a dashboard view with several slicers, a pivot table that has subtotals and grand totals disabled for this case, and several pivot charts. And when you have something like this, this can actually get really slow really quickly. We'll just run one of the slowest operations, a refresh. And there's a few things going on here that are making it really slow. One is that we are sending a lot of queries to the server. So what that means is that we're it's going to have extra round trips, and that's because for each one of the pivots in the workbook, we are actually asking for the schema, and that's things like all the measures and the fields available to use in the pivot table. There's also increased complexity of these queries, which is resulting in an increased load on the server. And so this is because we're actually asking for the subtotals from the server, and you can see that the server has finished processing the query and is now sending a lot of data back right now. And we're also asking the server for the schema, even though it hasn't changed. And because so we're getting a lot of volume, we're having a lot of load on the server, and even though we don't necessarily need to be doing all that. So with the work that we did that we released last July, we actually have the same workbook, same settings, same layout. And when we kick off a refresh here, it's actually going to go much quicker. You're going to see that we are actually sending less queries. We're actually asking for less data, and the result is that we have a workbook that went from refreshing in about a minute down to refreshing in about 10 seconds. And this, so that's been a huge benefit for users. We've gotten a lot of great feedback around that, and it means that you can build more complicated workbooks, build larger workbooks, and have a zippier experience. Get your fresh data faster, which means that you're probably going to be spending less time getting coffee. So that is the performance improvements that we made to OLAP pivots. So we've also just now released a feature that lets you customize pivot table defaults. And what this actually did was it was a user voice ask. So user voice is a website that Excel has started using in the last year that lets people ask for things that they want to see in the product and then also vote for them. So I'll show you a little bit about that at the end of the presentation, but it's a great way to it's a channel that we've been using a lot to determine, okay, well, what kinds of things, what are some of the one-off, some of the smaller items that we can start adding to the product that are really in demand. And we also use it to gauge, like, for the larger investments, what is the interest that we could behind them. So in this case, here is a workbook that has 2 pivot tables in it. And here is my favorite layout. this is the layout that every time when I'm inserting a pivot table, I want to get to, because well, first of all, it takes advantage of some of the performance improvements. It's also in what's called tabular layout. It's wider, so it makes it, for me, it makes it a little easier to read. And on the one on the right, we have a pivot table that is in compact layout. This is the one that Excel ships out of the box every time. It has subtotals on, it has grand totals on. And in order to get from here to here, I insert the pivot table. I go up to the design ribbon. I make the changes to the different settings up here, like grand totals and the report layout. And then I can either create copies of this pivot table, or just have to go through that whole process of inserting them every single time. So in order to do any of my analyses, one-off ad hoc analyses, or to do anything like build consistent looking dashboards, I have to go through that process. So we have added now, available in Insider's fast builds, we have added an option in the file options dialog. I'll just resize this. In the data section, and if you're on an older build, you'll see it in the advanced section. We've added a button that says edit default layout for pivot tables. So when you click on that, you're given a dialog that looks like this. And it gets populated with whatever cell currently has focus here in this layout import box. And what it lets you do is actually change settings for the subtotals, for the grand totals, and for the report layout. You also have access to all the options in your pivot table options dialog, so you can do things like change auto fit, or if you like classic mode, you can enable classic mode by default. And so you can make those changes manually, or you can go ahead and import them from a pivot table in your workbook. And so when I push import, all the settings get brought in. And then when I push OK, I can immediately just start building pivot tables to have that layout. So here we can go add the pivot table. We can start adding fields. And you'll see that subtotals are disabled, grand totals are disabled, and we're in tabular layout. So right off the bat, I've just taken minutes out of every single pivot table or seconds out of every single pivot table that I build. And so what you can do with this is now actually, if you'd like, you can actually go ahead and vote for other items that you want to see in the product. So if we go, I'll show you quickly the Excel user voice. And this is an area where you can, for all the different endpoints, you can vote to see features in the product. And so you can see some of the top items here are related to having Python. And then right below that is being able to actually customize pivot table defaults. So when this goes out to production at the end of the month, we're going to update this and say that we built it. And so a few things are happening here. One is that this was an ask by an MVP, and we communicated, got some more information by talking to that person, and also dug into the comments around it and reached out to these individual people to understand what it is that they're looking for. And just drummed up, asked to see how much of how many votes would come out of it, what was the community support like, and then went and built it. And so if you go to the user voice site, it's a good chance if there's something that you want to see in the product to go ahead and either submit the idea or vote on it yourself. So here's a few useful links. You can go to user voice. You can also, if you'd like to get the Office subscription, you just go to office.com and sign up on that page. And if you'd like to become an Office Insider, which means get access to builds essentially on a weekly basis, and get access to, and you'll also have access to us, the engineers who build the product, and be able to have feedback, give us feedback, and ask us any questions around the new features. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Johan, or actually, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Oh, and while people are thinking of questions, how about that Python scripting language? Do you know how that is?
So that's one, and let's take a look at that one. What he's talking about is the, let's see. So right now, it's just something that we're considering. We're trying to figure out, look at ways. That's obviously a larger work item than the pivot defaults. We're trying to determine how we can integrate that into the product if it makes sense for Excel. Right now, there are third-party tools that let you use Python as an Excel scripting language, but we don't have it in the products, and we haven't made any announcements around adding it. But this is an area where you can actually keep track of the progress on that, if that's something of interest to you. Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any questions. I just thought I'd mention as well while we have you on the screen, it's that personally I love the new improvements on the pivot tables. I'm working with a large customer that has a lot of Power BI launching right now, but we still need and love our pivot tables in Excel and the way that Power BI handles pivot tables and tables. You don't see any change in Excel usage for a good while yet.
I'd love to learn more about that. I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have, or if you have any feedback around it. Feel free to send me an email, and anything related to pivot tables, I'm a great person to talk to for that, and I'm very curious to hear about any kinds of issues you run into, or things that you love about them, things that you hate about them. Let me know. I'm happy to help.
Great. Thank you so much for presenting for us. And as there are, let's see, there was one raised hand. Yeah, there we go. Yes, the webinar will be recorded. Somebody asks. Does the performance improvements require higher SQL Server versions 2, or is this just a standalone performance in Excel?
Excellent question. So this doesn't require a higher version of SQL Server. This will work. We tested it as far back as SQL 2008. And yes, it'll work. It works with AS analysis services going back to that, at least that version of SQL. It should also work. We hadn't tested it with other third-party AS or cubes, but there shouldn't be any impact to any of your workflow, negative impact to your workflows in using this feature with those cubes. All you have to do is just make sure your pivots have, to get the biggest bang for the buck, have your pivots have grand totals and subtotals off, and you'll get the most right there. The most improvement. Yeah.
Also, follow-up question: which version number of Excel that is due to release? Which version number of Excel will this be when it's released? You know.
So, are we talking about the pivot table defaults?
Yeah. Well, the improvements, it seems.
So the performance improvements were released in July, part of the July release last year. And we have a blog post for it. If you look up just OLAP, I'll just do it right now. If you look up OLAP performance Excel pivots blog, that's already out in the product. Yeah, we released that on the July 7th. And that has more information about the work that we did. There's also the custom pivot table defaults will be available. We're expecting to have it out as part of the April release. So that is, start looking for them in the third week of April. We'll publish a blog post and make a broader announcement. It's also available now if you want to try it out. You go to Office Insiders, and that's where you can sign up. And you have to have an Office subscription to begin with. But once you, if you do, there's a sign-up process down here, and you can start getting access to builds within a few hours.
Mm-hmm. So next question is, I see there is a search field in the pivot tables field list at the top. When will that be released into the wild?
So you're talking about this. This was actually, I think this was something that we shipped with Office 2016. So I don't know if you have to have, if it was something that we got out with the what we call the perpetual, so the standard release, the every 3-year cycle, or if it's something that we added only to subscription users after that initial release. But if you have 365, you'll definitely see it in the product.
Mm. Will these features be pushed into the new local installed version as well?
So the way we've approached it is that for at least for custom pivot table defaults and many of the features that we have in Excel that we release to subscribers only, the idea is that every 3 years you'll get the latest. You'll get all the work that we invest, or most of the work that we added in the interim. So for example, we released 2016, I don't remember exactly, it was in late 2015. Let's say we released it in October or September. And then we added work in July of the next year. So the people who bought the boxed version, the perpetual version, won't see the work until we release Office 2019.
Okay, thank you. Let's see now. These improvements are great. Thanks for sharing. User voice is a great idea too. I've already voted on a few items. Is there a way to get notified when a new idea is posted?
That is a good question. I don't know if it's possible to do something like follow it, or if there's an RSS, like an RSS feed that lets you keep an eye on what's going on the site. Right now, the best option is, because the feedback is sorted in terms of what's new and popular. That's a great way to to see what's going on there. Otherwise, just visit the site. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for?
Let's see if he answers. Meanwhile, there's last question I've got listed is, I turn off subtotals for a pivot table. I then add a new column to the rows. It re-adds subtotals. How do I prevent this?
That is clearly someone who spends a lot of time using pivot tables. That is a bug that's also fixed as part of this work. So what the caller is asking about is that, and I will just create a new sheet here. In previous versions, when you insert a pivot table and you start adding fields, just like he or she described, you end up with this. I'm using a beta. I'm using internal builds, so things get kind of funny looking. Let's go to this one. So as I add a field, so let's say I disable subtotals here, or I disable them here, and then I go ahead and I add another field. That field will have subtotals on it. So if I were to do some in the previous version, but now what we've done is actually that is no longer the case. So as soon as you add another field, it'll also have subtotals disabled.
Will this be released as a patch to on-premise versions, or?
No, this will be, we rolled it up all into the same bucket of work, so this will be available in the 2019 release.
Cool. And the user voice guide that came back with saying just nothing particular, just don't want to miss voting on a good idea.
Great, yeah. At this point, everyone I think gets a handful of votes, but I believe I think that there might be ways that we might be changing the voting So you can actually vote on as many items as you like. But right now what you can do is you have, I think, around 4 or 5 votes, and then you can just vote on items, and you can even vote on the same item twice to give it more votes. So yeah, just visit the site, visit often, and let us know what you're looking for.
Cool. Let's see now if there's any more questions coming in. It doesn't look like it, so I guess we can end this session for now. People saying thank you. And
thank you.
okay, thank you everyone, and have a great day, evening, whatever time zone you're in.
Yes, my day's about to get started. Really appreciate the invite, Johanna, and we might have some more coming up as we get closer to the Data Insights Summit. I'll be presenting there. If any of you will be attending, I'll be presenting the Microsoft Excel and Power BI Better Together story. So if that's something that you're interested in, check out the summit. Also, I think, yeah, Johan, you and I should talk and see if maybe that would be something that would be of interest to this audience.
Definitely. We'll keep in touch. Okay, I'll
Great,
stop to the webinar now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.